On the bottom illustration on the brick, they originally had the idea of demolishing all of the buildings. And there was a lot of pushback in the local community. People really cared about the buildings. And so they kept the brick building, but appended a brand new building next to it. So kind of keeping some part of the school alive in existence for those who care about the structure itself, but also building in new amenities that people expect from a modern senior center. But just so you look in the yellow box, this was a publicly funded initiative. It cost about $12 million, which is about $10 million less than the initial estimates. And it was about a 5-year process from beginning to end. But a lot of that's just the public having its own conversation and deciding what it wants. Next slide. Okay, so this is a school in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Well, it was a school site. They chose to demolish the entire school at the time, and it was a big school, like the size of a small shopping mall. And what the town really wanted, this town really wanted, was tax revenue. But they also wanted a lot of community uses built into it. So when they sold it to a private developer with the understanding that they would get community benefits back, like a YMCA. And so they built that into their project. Totally different, but it included brand new apartment housing that they felt like they needed, new shopping center, and the YMCA. And this site is about half the size of your site. So that was about $60 million in private investment. It's not quite done yet, but as you can see, it's been about 12 years in the making. Next slide. I put this one on here because it's closer to home. Hope in Maine is also an urban setting, so not quite analogous. But what was interesting about Hope in Maine, and I was part of the development of that, was that they knew they wanted a culinary use for the building. The town was very, food and food production was very important to them, but they didn't really know which direction they wanted to go with it. They did an intensive needs assessment through their economic development committee, and they asked chefs and people in the culinary industry, which was facilitated by Johnson & Wales, and they asked their economic development people in town, what is it you need? And overwhelmingly at that point, people needed affordable cook space. So that's how that project evolved, and it was incremental because they had to get grants to fund the next step, every step of the way. It helped that they had a private person supporting the project and ushering it through. I was helpmeet, but I was not the driver of the project. And eventually, it took a lot of salesmanship to get the funding for the project through the USDA Region 1. But that's a $4 million project that includes culinary business space, classroom space, conference room space, teaching cooking classes space. They also run a farmer's market. It's running right now, and you can go on the weekend and check out the space. And then they have particular markets for certain seasons. So my point in showing you this is that if the community wants something and it's creative and it's behind it, it can happen. It takes a lot of work and it takes a little bit of time and a lot of handshaking and introducing people to your crazy ideas, but it can happen eventually. So, next. So here's where your work comes in. Today we are envisioning what's possible. You have a wide array of ideas that came out of the survey, and you can develop those further, or you can come up with your own ideas for today. But we're encouraging you to think big. And when I'm saying thinking big, I might want to hit it again. You want to think about your local needs and also your particular community assets. And you know the people here, and you know what happens here. So what is unique about North Smithfield that you could capitalize on? So it could be people, it could be organizations, it could be something particular to the town. Also think regionally. There may be a possibility, Hope in Maine did this too, to get revenue by making a regional destination. And it could just be conference space, rentable conference space, rentable classroom space. I can say, as somebody, I live in Barrington, And we're always hunting for community spaces. It's not so easy. So particularly for the smaller spaces. Also think multi-seasonally. You don't want your facility to die in the winter time. So there may be winter sports, winter activities, different activities you could do. It's all up to your creativity. But the idea is to keep whatever it is operational throughout the year. And a lot of that can happen by making things multi-purpose, right? So that uses can come in and come out of different spaces. Next slide, please. So here is our activity one. It's to talk about those uses and programs. You can stay where you are, but what we're going to ask is one of our assistants, if you want to talk through some ideas, or just, you can shout them out, you can talk to each other, and we're going to record that for about, I don't know, maybe a half an hour. And then maybe somewhere in there, I'll give you a heads up, like we're going to close it out. We're going to ask you to vote on what your top ideas are. So we're going to record that on one of these matrices, right here. And so take maybe 5 minutes to really think about it, jot some ideas down, and then I'll probably put the microphone down, and walk out there. But if you want to throw out some particular uses, for example, senior center or whatever it is you want. What?
Did I hear somebody say skiing when we were talking about winter?
No, skating rink.
So that's our first one. That's our first one. I remember that too. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. Just shout it out. The next section will go into smaller groups because it's a little bit more design focused. All right. What else? Wander with us.
Should we say senior center?
Senior center. Put it down.
Year-round pool.
Year-round pool.
Year-round indoor.
Yeah.
Oh, indoor. Massive level. Water aerobics. Here we go.
Water aerobics. Can't just be in pool.
We're going to do people right now.
That's good though.
And if we don't hear on...
A place for veterans. Yes. A veterans.
Veterans, like, what do we want to call that? Not a department, but
Meetings. Organizational center.
Yeah.
There's a VFW that doesn't have space anymore.
okay, so veteran space.
Yes. Food pantry.
You gotta yell it out. You can't just be quiet. You gotta just get in there.
Cross-country trails.
Cross country trails.
Dog park.
Dog park. That was a big one in the survey. That's why they have dogs there.
I'm going to pick on people if I don't hear from
Do we want to get something in the senior center? Big idea. Food pantry.
whatever comes to your mind.
Food pantry.
Are we also going to make a list of things we definitely don't want?
Wasn't part of it, but in front of you on each table, at least up here, are idea cards for those of you who are feeling shy and don't want to yell out. Feel free to write your ideas down. And then if you want to, I will, you can write down, if you feel like you need to get that out of your system, go ahead and say, I don't want this.
Well, there are some people here from the street that's the most impacted.
This is our backyard.
Literally our backyard. So when you say a splash pad, we go like, not as long as I can use it. Right. Because one kid got kids at, oh, it's a whole other thing of the town.
So far, I have skating rink, senior center, year-round indoor pool for water aerobics, veteran space, cross-country trail, dog park, social services / food pantry. Like this.
Can the senior center be served as a community center as well? Can it be like a combination of things? And also, can all those things be put together?
Yes.
Free play space, like just for like basketball, baseball, or
I'm in a fitness center.
They have that at school. Yes. Yeah, they can. And when we share that space at Scout Club, we share class, plenty of room for exercise classes, information specialists.
So the senior center can have large rooms for those activities,
Yeah.
but also it provides services. So it needs office space for individual or small group purposes.
You could even have an adult daycare program.
Right, it's,
All right, let's talk about Joanne.
I'm sorry, I have like
Okay, so there's all spaces
and I didn't hear the rest.
for different functions, so multifunctional space. Right, offices.
And you can use the space at night when it's not being used, but let it be for seniors, because you know my take when you were doing your thing, Chris? Existing facilities. Well, there's no existing facility for seniors. We're doing a make-do with Scouts Hall, and it's going quite well, but we're guests there.
Okay, can I elaborate on that? Because you have to, I mean, you're going to get a lot of wetlands on your site, so I'm saying the whole site rebuilt, but you have a lot of room on your site. Is it an idea that you could have some section of the site as a senior center exclusively for the use of seniors? Because I can see why seniors wouldn't want kids running around.
right.
But in another site, another part of the site, for kids.
Absolutely, that's where the skating rink could go and the pool. You heard that comment?
I'm just putting it out there. I mean, it's just-
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just talking about one space.
I'm gonna throw out a couple other ideas that were on the survey that I think that as a whole we think are pretty good, and that was the community garden. We've seen success with the community garden as it stands right
And the
now.
seniors could go volunteer.
So I think that would be something worthwhile to explore.
Outdoor concert space,
Yeah, that would be.
outdoor space. Is it outdoor
Concert.
concert and conference, that would be nice. Outdoor conference space is always good.
You know, we also had bike trails, pedestrian connections.
What is that?
Which land is there?
So pedestrian connections is essentially, the planning board is looking at how you can make interconnections throughout town. So one of the interconnections throughout town is using Halliwell as a connection point from Victory Highway to School Street to Roselawn to Green Street. There's actually about a 30 to 40 foot swatch that leads out to Green Street. So you can have that as a focal, Halliwell property is a focal point for walking paths or bike paths to have that connection.
That's a very good idea.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's a
Couldn't
great
it
idea.
go up to, School Street as
It
well?
would have to go,
Or
it would
to
connect out to
Village
School
Haven,
Street,
go
and
that
then,
way
you know,
too.
we could have a
Good
conversation
idea.
with Lindsay's or Village Haven to have some sort of connection that way as well.
Access to that area.
So, I think
So it's not isolated.
if you guys
Yeah.
try to envision that it's not just what goes into a building, but also what goes on at the site, because there's really a, as Carolyn said, we have wetlands out there, but there are opportunities to really have either passive or active recreation items going in this area in some way, shape, or form. What they are is going to be entirely up to what the residents decide upon, but those sort of things are up there.
One of the things she mentioned about looking at the assets of our community makes me think about my interest in local food systems. Our town has been a farming town for a long time, and I'm wondering if this can't support that type of community where if people want to farm a small acreage, rent space from farmers for their own farming activities, if we had a commercial kitchen, if we had a farmer's market to support their efforts. So looking at what impact we could do here in Halliwell that would support other things that are going on around the town. You know, someone wants to grow tons of hot peppers and make hot pepper sauce, you know, would a commercial kitchen, a rentable kitchen support that? At the same time, a commercial kitchen could support the Cub Scouts doing their Costa dinners or whatever. So a multifunctional type of that, but looking at a cohesive food system, we talk about a food pantry, but what other ways can we support a resilient food system to support our families?
I love to build on that. I really like what Jeff was saying about keeping the connectivity in mind. And our town is doing a master sidewalk plan right now. path there, and it was really nice how the bike path goes through the town and it goes through the amenities, and so it's not like a separate thing. And I think because Halliwell is, down in that little valley, it would be really nice to have connectivity and to have wayfinding so that it didn't just feel like this separate thing from the town. And one other thing I wanted to mention based on another model you showed is that an issue in this community is affordable housing. So there's a lot of people who have actually had to leave this community because they can't afford housing here, buying or renting. So there's models that will have housing together with recreation and that kind of thing. And people are talking about food pantries, and social services. So I'm really interested in looking at our comprehensive plan and a lot of the things that are mentioned in our comprehensive plan and how a community center could tie in with that.
Yeah, the housing, you have a commercial kitchen and farmers market, any other
Wayfinding is in there. Camps.
Daily lunches at the senior center. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily meal sites for just seniors. I hear that and that's being passed around a lot. But we really have to be careful that when we continuously say seniors, that you're segregating a separate population. Like we want to promote our kids to stay in this community. And so we need to think about what they want too. I get it. I don't want kids loud and obnoxious all the time either. But we do need to think about communal spaces as opposed to just saying seniors, because it is pretty limiting in scope. And you're going to immediately take the kids out of the equation.
Well, no, you don't really, because you can do a lot of degeneration, which has been done and continues to be done in schools.
Well, even if we just say it as a multi-generational center.
Well, just let me tell you this, that thing, when it said, how would you use existing facilities? There is not an existing facility in seniors in this town. No, there has ever been. I've been here a long time, and we have wonderful schools, and we still pay taxes and are grateful for them. But do you know what is spent on seniors? This. And so I can tell you that during the pandemic, seniors in the communities were hit very hard. We heard about the seniors that were in, the senior housing nursing homes and things like that. The people in the communities during this pandemic suffered a great deal. Most of the municipalities in the state had a senior center, and those seniors could call them and find out about vaccinations and just get connected. One of the towns of Rutherford Island had 2 suicides. The seniors that were so disconnected. So it's a way that they could feel connected. The only money that we spend in this town on seniors is $2,500 per year in the Parks and Rec budget. So that Aging Well was able to offer 3 classes that Southern taught. That's all. And so it's time, just look at this, okay? More than ever, the pandemic really drove home to me the need for a senior center. Because what most of them did, they would call their members. They would, maybe they was for 10 people, because they all had skeleton who was working. And they would call 10 people a day. And just checking, we do not have that.
So what you're saying is you want the services that are connecting with the senior center. I agree with you. I completely agree with you, and I hear you 100%. I'm in the business of this. I work for an insurance company. I know health and wellness, and especially our seniors is predominant. I hear you 100%. But I'm trying to say, what are the services that you're looking for? And you said somebody reaching out to connect and adding pieces.
But it's more than that. It is more than that. The list of things that can be done in the senior center, intergenerational, work with the veterans. We do food. We teach. We have a lot of educational programs. We have monitoring. We have blood pressure clinics, bone density clinics, hearings. We do food clinics and everything. So it's a whole comprehensive thing. It's not just about exercise. But what I'm saying, there is nothing in this town for seniors. There is nothing. Right now, we are able to offer some services at some solely guest care. Aging Well is providing about 5 or 6 classes a week there. And do you know how many people go? Lots. Right now, Lincoln Senior Center has 85 Northminster residents that are members. The Woonsocket Senior Center, Aging Well, about 120 now members. Gloucester Senior Center, 29 members. So I think it's kind of telling that 22% of our population is over 65. And you know how many, I think I handed in 200 surveys from the seniors this week out. But it doesn't mean that the community can't be included. It really doesn't. But they need a place where they can sit and talk and be around. Just remember this, the absence or presence of a senior center speaks volumes